It's like, how you doing?
The
It's
last
live.
show I hit the button to leave
Because we're
and it was
streaming now.
yeah, that was bad. Yeah, we're streaming now.
Yeah, we're on.
We are
Boom.
live. Paraglidingtalk.com. Welcome to Paragliding Talk. I'm your host, Robert Michaels. Glad you're here. I'm trying to sort out these all these windows. Let me see. We're going to close that. Glad you're here. If you're just logging in, you're a part of the greatest paragliding talk show on Thursday nights at 6 p.m.
Bold
And
statement.
yeah, I'm glad you're here. Glad you've come to the show. Tonight's a very special episode. By the way, in moderation, we have Scott, Sean Nafsker, and Anthony Peregringo. All of them are paramotor pilots. I'm trying to convert Anthony to a free flight pilot, but these guys are exceptional. If you see anybody in the chat with a wrench next to their name, they've done something exceptional for the flying community, or something they've maybe been a part of the show from the very beginning, stuff like that. So if you have any questions about the show, how you can support the show, or how maybe you've got a guest that you're thinking would be a great person to have on the show, reach out to these guys in the chat, or maybe send me a ping on the website, paraglidingtalk.com. There's also some resources you can find on the website and some of the previous shows. And also you can listen to these on a podcast format. Now, it's a pain in the butt for me to create those, but there's a handful of them on there. If more people are listening to those, then I'll upload more. Right now, it's just kind of an extra work. If I have extra time, I'll throw it on there, and extra time is hard to come by. So glad that you're here. Let's see if I can fix this microphone a little better. Doesn't sound like I'm so far away. Want to mention a couple sponsors. One of those is Harley Milne. Great guy, by the way, Harley Milne, but he's an instructor now. And he's not just any instructor, but he's a world record holder instructor, not for instructing, but for flying some pretty incredible flights. And if you want to check him out, you can go to his website, dreamlifterparamotors.com. You can get some training. Maybe you're already a pilot, but you're thinking, you know what, I want to get trained to be able to do some big XC stuff. Weather's a huge factor. How can you get sponsorship, things like that? Talk to him. Reach out to him at dreamlifterparamotors.com. Also want to mention Andrew Fuller. He has a full service wing repair shop. His website is paraglider-inspection.myshopify.com. These links, by the way, can be found on the website or in the description. And also want to mention Paramotor Props, paramotorprops.com. It is one of the places where you can go on the internet and no one will know that you accidentally needed a prop. It's completely hidden from everyone, except for you're obviously going to have to put special notes if you want to hide it from your wife. And props they break sometimes. So anyways, paramotorprops.com is the website. Great deals on the interwebs and great people if you want to buy one. PBG Smoke, Ryan Roberts made a whole bunch of different things for our flying community. Go check out their website, pbgsmoke.com. They got lamels, chase cams, floats, Unity headset, smoke machines. They still have smoke machines. I think that's one of the coolest things. You fly around and you hit the button and smoke comes flying out. Go check out his website, pbgsmoke.com. Thank you guys for logging in tonight. I see a lot of friendly faces, some new. If you're new to the show, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Maybe somebody's sending you this video. Go and maybe just hit that subscribe button. And if you did like the video, maybe got something out of it, hit the like. All of those things are important. I guess it pushes up the algorithm and lets more people see it. Leah Cachulo said props are consumables. I like Leah. One day I ground up 2 props in the same day, 2 sets. That was a bad day.
Expensive day.
The second half of the day was I went to launch the first one, blew up that prop, had to go back to the house, get my other extra one, and I threw those on there. And I went back and then I flew. I had a good flight. And when I came into land, it was just like a and just broke one of the ends off. Oh, it's horrible. So tonight you're probably wondering, what is this episode about? If you saw the thumbnail, it's about air rescue. Kind of a sobering thought that you would have to get life flighted out or have someone come and pick you up from a helicopter. It's a little unnerving to think that that could be possible. It can be possible with anything. I mean, you can be driving down the road and end up needing it. You see every once in a while, you see the freeway shut down because somebody got in a car accident and they needed that. But a couple things I wanted to kind of mesh together when it comes to flying paragliders. There's some critical details. I think that if we all kept these tools in our pockets, we can make a rescue much smoother, and it can be something that doesn't necessarily end up bad but good. We recently had an event at one of our flying sites here in Southern California at Little Black. Guy took a collapse. It was low. Didn't have enough time for the pitch to correct, and he pounded in and really hard. Broke his back, broke his pelvis, and was knocked unconscious and had lacerations on his face. So he was bleeding a bit. And one of the pilots that was there saw him go down. And so he immediately began the process of sorting out what type of medical attention this guy was going to need. And basically, all of these things happen very quickly. By the way, let me see if I can pull this up one more time on Instagram. I should have probably just posted this. Oh, darn it. I just missed it. But there is an article that's going to be coming out in the Cross Country magazine about helicopter rescue. And it just so happens that it's going to be in the next episode, what do you call it? Magazine. Help me out here, guys. Issue. Thank you. Yeah. Next issue. I think it's like maybe at issue 182 or something like that. Anyways, it's on the Instagram. I was reading it just before the show. I should have screenshot or something, but they're going to be talking about that. So maybe go check that out if you're not already a part of getting that magazine. Cross Country magazine is a really good magazine. Probably one of the only ones I'd be interested in getting, something that has to do with flying. People read magazines still? That's an interesting thought. So I do want to talk about this because there is maybe a little bit of lack of understanding of all the dynamics. So I'm going to throw some things out there. You see what sticks. By the way, this is a disclaimer. I'm not a medical person. I don't know. I'm not a professional when it comes to giving advice on resuscitation or CPR or how to treat somebody who's been injured or, maybe really badly injured like we see in paragliding. So take my advice with a grain of salt, do your own research, do your own study. And I don't want to be responsible, but I do want to encourage the proper behavior and the proper response to somebody who's been in an injury that requires life flight. And some of this stuff that we're going to talk about tonight might actually help across the board. It might be a hiker. I was flying at Blossom and saw a helicopter out there, and they were rescuing a guy who's a rock climber. So I didn't have any involvement with helping the guy, but I thought I kind of know what to expect with that rescue.
You got
since I've been
Chris
flying.
Altmaier, mayor in the chat there. He'd be good to bring on if you wanted to come on.
Oh yeah, because Chris had to get life flighted out of Salton Sea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can we arrange that? Is there a way we can send him? Let me see if I have Chris's information here. Yeah, if any of you guys have his contact, please send it to him if he wants to come on.
So I asked him what the flight cost, and he's thinking it's around 93 grand. Oof.
Oomfta. So there's a conversation that was had, and I'm kind of disappointed that I didn't remember the information. But I heard that there is two different types of rescue. There's one rescue that will cost you $93,000. There's another rescue that you don't pay for. And I can't remember what the exception is, but it doesn't really matter because when it's time for a life flight, you don't talk about, can I get a deal? I want to make sure this is going to be free. I've heard of people running out of ambulances. They're
Did you
unconscious.
bring your
They get
visa,
thrown in ambulance.
sir?
They wake up and jump out. What's that?
Did you bring your visa, sir? We got the box right
Yeah,
here. All you have to do is
yeah,
slide the card right in.
yeah.
We'll get you right out of here.
Yeah, from a rope.
Call your
Yeah.
bank. You're going to need to up your limit.
Yeah. So, yeah, Will Fly said if you get rescued on Monday or Tuesday, it should be cheaper. So, I do want to just say first, before we dive into this, that the rescue team that showed up to rescue my friend Neil, they were incredible. I mean, just really on point guys. I think California firefighters are some of the best in the world. And the reason why is because they've got to deal with so many different logistics, but mainly because they'll do the very best job that they possibly can so that they can stay here and keep their job because it's such a cool place to live and they pay decent. So you can imagine. But anyways, these guys are just top notch from every bit. And by the way, Scott could probably chime in a little bit because he's first responder in a lot of cases as well. But these guys were dispatched to the site. It's a complicated scenario because we have a guy that's kind of up a path. He's in the bushes, maybe 100 yards up the hill. He's hit his head. He's unconscious. He's bleeding and probably broken and in multiple places. By the way, I didn't mention he did have some broken bones in his face. So he's in recovery. He's in decent spirits from what I can tell. And we need to pray for speedy recovery for him, that he'll, just be better quickly. Just a super cool guy. I got to meet him at a fly-in a couple years back, and I've been following him on Instagram since then. We've flown, I guess, maybe a couple times together, but just a really good group of first responders. And something that if you watched the video, because right after it happened, I felt like, you know what, we need to get the conversation out there. And as far as safety goes, I know it's not the most political correct thing to do to throw your friend under the bus that just had an accident and tell him, well, let's everybody talk about his accident and put him on the news. But I had to put aside that kind of pride and say, you know what, we need to talk about this. We need to try to sort out, especially while it's still fresh, what happened, how can we do better? And so that's another reason why we're having this conversation tonight. So air rescue. So here's the first question. How long do you wait to call 911? Now, Tony Boyer was in the air above Neil when he saw him go in. And so Tony caught this, he saw that him going in, knew that it was a hard landing, and had the wherewithal to make some decisions quickly. Now he's in the medical field. He doesn't do anything physically with people, but he does more like logistic stuff. But he got on the radio right away and said, "Hey, Neil, buddy, if you're okay, can you give me a dispatch real quick? Can you let me know that you're conscious, or are you okay? And if I don't hear anything from you, it's okay. We're going to call 911. And he waited just a few seconds, and I heard the correspondence going back and forth. Then it was, "Okay, buddy, we're going to call 911 for you. If you can hear us, we're calling 911. That means we're going to have some people to come and help you. Okay, buddy, hang in there." And then he began to dispatch some of the guys that were on the ground that were packing up their gliders and said, "Hey, we got a guy that pounded in. He's not moving right now, and he's on the trail," and blah, blah, blah. And he began to just kind of issue out some things that he could do. And I think it's wise that you don't put yourself in a situation and try to go land by your friend. As much as he wanted to go and land, especially in free flight, it might be different. It's up to you if you want to try to go and land somewhere where there's been an accident. But he made the decision that he was going to stay in the air for a little while just to see if he could communicate with him. Another guy named Tom, who was on the ground, rushed up the trail. He was actually the first guy to get to him. And so he ran up the trail. There was some other people that were there as well. and they begin to assess the situation. So the question, how long do you wait until you call 911? The sooner the better. And you have to think that first responders are going to typically they're going to want the quickest route to get to your person. They're going to want the most important details, and they're going to start off with those most important details. And so it's critically important that if you're the one that's on the phone with the dispatch, that you're not distracted. Okay. So there's going to be situations where you may be distracted. You may get, sidetracked because you're dealing with multiple things. If you're the guy in the air, you may not be the best person to call 911. If there's someone on the ground that can just as quickly talk to someone on 911, that was a wise decision by Tony to say, you know what, Tom or whoever else is on the ground, please call 911. I really like that part of it. Also, you don't necessarily need to be the big hero. Everyone is going to play a part. We don't have to risk your life to try to help someone. So he didn't force a landing. He waited. He was patient. I think Phil Russman was also in the air, and he was kind of issuing out some different things that he could contribute to what was happening at the time. And let's talk a little bit about when someone is going to require a lift out of somewhere. Now, if it involves a hike, doesn't matter how steep or shallow that terrain is, likely when you have someone that's impacted the ground like that, maybe in a severe mountain bike accident or paragliding or hiking, or, maybe they fell from a cliff or they were rock climbing or whatever. In these situations, they're not going to try to pick somebody up and throw them over their shoulder like in the old days. Okay. They're going to want to have the person on a stretcher typically so that they can kind of strap them down and keep them straight. Now, go ahead,
sorry.
Scott. I know you had some great.
The number one thing they're going to do is ground first responders are going to go there and pretty much don't move them. That's the thing that's going to ruin it most is I've seen it where someone fell off like literally a 10-foot little cliff off Sunset Cliffs and just went down there, held his head and doing the assessment. Hey, can you feel your feet? Can you feel this? And they life flighted him off Sunset Cliffs, which was 15 foot down, because for them, it's a lot less likely to cause permanent damage by just putting him on the one board and life flighting him up than it is to try to carry him and then they kind of lose them or something happens. It's just not worth it. So that's why they almost always, the less movement, the better for that. Even on Cowles Mountain, there's always someone that goes up there like once a year and they try to, they end up, not being out of shape and they end up life flying off the Cowles Mountain just because they don't want to be responsible for having that much damage to them by trying to, let's all help them hike down kind of thing, because they don't want to risk it just in case, their vertebrae is almost going into their spinal cord kind of thing. Yep. So that's,
well, that internal bleeding, you could have broken bones that, could lacerate organs and things like that. So it's to prevent further injuries,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good thing,
Yeah. I mean, I had one where literally I'm just there holding his head and, don't move. And, I just jumped down there and the course fire gets all their, ropes on and all their helmets on and stuff, and that's all you're doing is you're stabilizing the head, because just a look like that can, that could ruin it. So that's why they really want to mitigate that risk,
Yep. So we learned a little bit about this in first responding. I was the chief engineer of building downtown, and we talked a little bit about wanting your desire to like help the old person that fell down, and you want to just grab them. And I even the other day, let me see if I still have the picture. I was driving down the road and I saw a lady laying face down in the street, and actually on the sidewalk pretty close to the curb. And I saw her like a little cart rolled over, and I'm like, Nobody's helping. At a glance, it just looked like a homeless person sleeping on the corner, but it was just a very unusual place to be taken out. I'm like, wait a second, she fell out of her chair, and I saw her stuff all scattered. I'm like, oh man. So we pulled around really fast. And right when I got to her, she was bleeding pretty bad from her glasses, had stabbed her in the face. And so she had quite a bit of blood on her face. And she's like, just stand me up. And I'm like, no, we can't do that. But I'll be your shade for a few minutes here until the paramedics come. And we are already calling 911. And but she was trying to convince me. She's like, just pick me up and put me back on my cart and I'll go my way. And I'm like, no, probably not a good idea. I want to make sure you're okay. And she it looked like she was going to be okay. And the ambulance did take her to the hospital because of her laceration. But the initial reaction is you want to go up there and help them, and you want to do something. You feel like you need to do something. I'm going to pick them up and carry them, or I'm going to move them away from this or that. Try not to touch them. Okay, so I wrote down what should we be doing if we're in the air. Well, I'm going to tell you something right away. If you were in the air, and this has happened in a few occasions, you're going to need to get down, because that helicopter is not going to come in if there's a bunch of paragliders flying around. So it becomes a temporary flight restriction. I don't know that it goes necessarily on the air, but we know that at that moment, there should be someone that's corresponding with everyone and saying, hey, make sure you're going to get on the ground. Helicopter's on its way. And if somebody doesn't have a radio, maybe you're going to need to fly near them and yell at them to come and land so that they can get out of there. So that's one thing. If you're out of flying, there's paramotors everywhere. We should probably come up with an international sign for, hey, it's time to land. I can imagine it has something to do with like pointing down or something like that, or I don't know, but we should probably figure that out. Coming into land, if it's a situation that it is landable, obviously you need to think about that. Don't make more work for the guys that are coming to rescue. By the way, I didn't put this in the notes, but it's my belief that the first responders are actually excited to do their job, and don't feel like you're a burden, because they're getting paid. That's what they signed up for. That's what their job is. And I think the helicopter pilot likes to fly. I think the rescue guys like to rappel down and do what they do. So don't, I just have this like in my gut. I'd be like, no, just let me die. I'm sorry, but they actually enjoy doing what they do for the most part. Everyone I've talked to, we've actually had a show where one of the guys is a pilot for rescue operations in Canada. So you can go back and watch that episode. I believe his name was Tom. I can't remember now. But anyways, so let's talk a little bit about being the guy on the ground. Okay. If you're in a situation where you're conscious and maybe you think you hurt your back, one of the things that you're going to need to do is obviously stay very still. But also, if you're by yourself and no one can come and rescue, one of the most critical things that you can do is get away from your glider. So if you can try to unclip and get away from your gear, I know this is a very special circumstance that you have enough to move yourself to unclip your glider and get it detached from you. You can maybe stay in your harness, but get it away from you, because the helicopter is going to want, the air is going to try to grab that and may yank you off the cliff. If you're in a situation where, like the guys at Blossom that fell on the face of El Cap, they had to get rescued off the face. They had to disconnect their glider from themselves. One of the guys had a broken arm with a compound fracture. His bones are sticking out. He's bleeding. And so he had to sort out how to get disconnected from his glider and get away from it. Because that thing, if it grabs air, it's gonna yank you around, and they won't come and rescue if there's something flying around you on the ground. So get your glider away. Communication. Let the first responders know how to get close to your friend or how to get close to you. I think it's a really good idea to know your location. know the street names, know the names of the mountain ranges. If you're flying cross country, try to know maybe even river names or park or landmark names in the place where you're flying. If you look ahead of time, it's very easy to go and take a look at the maps and look at topographically where things are. And as you can say, I'm north of this mountain or whatever. That's to say that you don't have a GPS. Now, it's really important if you're going to be flying anything, whether it's free flying, hang gliders, paramotors, even ultralight, if you're flying experimentals, it should be that you have some kind of a SOS device. Garmin InReach Mini is what I use. It's great, $15 a month. And it has this little button on the side that says SOS. And if I press that button and hold it down after an event, first responders are going to be on their way. They're going to get that alert. Garmin has a very special setup with the first responders, and they're going to send somebody to come and rescue you. Communication is probably one of the most critical parts of a air rescue or a helicopter rescue, however you want to look at it. Communicating to and if you can get on a frequency with them, I think I remember a rescue that happened at Blossom where they were given comms with the person that was on the ground. If the first responders are communicating, you don't need to be getting involved. I would say, and only if it's like the most critical information. So the comms, these guys are typically going to be using airband radio, I imagine. So I don't think you're going to have direct communication with the helicopter. However, that 911 operator and that dispatch will, and they'll be communicating back and forth and giving the information that is critically needed to make the rescue. Before you fly, before you launch, even if it's inconvenient or it seems like it's a waste of time, turn your InReach or turn your GPS on so that it's already connected to satellites and doing what it does. You don't want to crash and then figure out how to turn it on and dig it out and press buttons and do stuff when you're, incoherent. I remember one guy that broke his arm on the face of El Cap. He wasn't communicating with us, and we thought, man, he's not communicating, he must be unconscious. And so we kept on telling the dispatch, hey, we haven't got any communications. And then in the middle of about a 10-minute period of time, which seems like eternity, we hear him get on the radio and he goes, oh, I'm okay. My radio was just off and I don't know how it got turned off or whatever. And he was like, yeah, and I'm okay. I did break my arm, blah, blah, blah. And we were like, oh my gosh, he's alive. This is awesome. So then that information was transmitted to the first responders. And that became like a game changer. I think maybe it didn't make a lick of difference, but to me, it made a difference. I was like, oh yeah, okay, now we can really engage. And now we can communicate with the guy. And I think it was important. We can encourage him. He was in and out of consciousness because of the pain that he was in and the amount of blood that he had lost. Sorry, my voice, I've been talking all day. So that communication was critically important. Let's real quick spin the wheel, Sean.
Yeah, absolutely. Like what you were saying with the feeling like you're impeding, the crews that come out to rescue you. If anything, it's a reassurance of all that training that they've went through.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to think it's nonstop training. If they're not rescuing you, they're training to rescue you. That's their job. That's what they love to do, is to help people at their worst, Yeah. I would say that would be reaffirming that their training is successful and that they're doing a great job at what they do.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
All right.
And you almost get like a high doing it, going, helping them, especially when it's a good, turnout kind of thing too. So it's, they do it because they want to, you know. It's not like they're doing a job because they're like, oh, I have to do this. It, you know, takes a certain kind of person to do that. So, and they're going to send ground crews before they send any helicopter, like the Coast Guard. They try to make it within 30 minutes from when they get the call to when they launch. So they're always going to have the ground crew first, going out there to assess, because they won't send a helicopter unless someone on the ground says, yes, this is what we need to do, because they need someone to hook up everything on the ground anyways, you know? So that's just one thing to kind of think about too. But I think the most important thing about calling 911 is kind of like CPR stuff is you call 911 and you go down and wait for the people, and then you come back here with them. So that's probably one of the most important things is sending someone on the ground to guide them up, because that's a, you know, we lost people in Belleville Park that we couldn't find before. And they're like, oh, we're by this trail here. But if there's someone mobile, have them go down. And you could even from the air saying, yeah, the guy's circling above it. And from 2 or 3 miles, we'll be able to at least know where it's at, kind of thing, you know, before everyone lands. And that's a good one too. You can be like,
Yeah, that's
hey,
great information.
you know, I'm circling around there. Sorry, go spin the wheel. So
Yeah, we'll come right back to that after this, because that's a great point.
Okay.
And by the way,
Ross.
we're going to be giving away a T-shirt and one of these little holders for your micro SD card. We should name these things. And then also a mirror holder that mounts to your throttle handle that were 3D printed from Ray Pierce. Excuse me, Ray Pierce made those. The spin of this wheel is brought to you by Calamity Kite Clinic. CalamityKiteClinic.com is the website. Go if you want to learn how to ground handle, be much better. Go and hang out with Sean. He will give you some tips to be excellent at ground handling. CalamityKiteClinic.com. This is so awesome. I can clearly see everyone's name.
Yeah.
The modern marvels of
Ooh,
internet.
it's going to be close.
I also want to
More
mention
dial-up.
Nebraska PPG, Josh Bowden. He runs a school in Nebraska. If you're interested in getting some top-notch training, you can sign up with Josh and his team today. There's a link in the description. Oh, that's much better. I like the clapping much better. Congratulations.
David Andrade, or
Yeah, let me write that
Andrade.
down.
I know I'm butchering that name, and that's okay because I'm good at that. That's what Robert's got me here for. Is butchering
Yeah, David
names.
Andrade.
Congratulations.
Yeah, David, congratulations. So please go to the website, David. The website is paraglidingtalk.com. And if you go to the /contact, there's a form on there. If you fill out that form, it'll send me an email. In that contact form, please tell me what size shirt you wear. And then also put your address so I can send you a little package. By the way, Will Fly, your package is in my work truck. I still have to ship it out. So I'm going to ship it out with this guy's winnings. I know you're probably been checking the mailbox every day, waiting for your gift. Yeah, I just been buried. Every time I try to go to the post office, it's like a nightmare. Okay, so we're talking about this. This exact thing happened, by the way, when we were getting Neil off the side of the mountain. The fire trucks passed the entrance to the park, and they had to go back. And there's a raised median that they couldn't cross over to make a U-turn and go back. So what they did is I think they just put it in reverse and backed up to the road and then drove up the road. Simultaneously, we had ambulance, couple fire trucks, and then the helicopter, which was coming. Now, I can't confirm this 100%, but I believe that there was even a scout helicopter that came through very briefly, because I remember thinking, man, that was really fast. And that helicopter that ended up flying away, and I was like, that's weird. I thought they were gonna maybe do a rescue. Maybe they don't need it. And then I heard the big helicopter, which is a fire rescue helicopter. So I have some pictures. Let me just do a screen share real quick. By the way, this guy got some incredible pictures. I think I just messed up. You guys are not seeing what I'm sharing, are you?
No.
No,
Let
it
me
just
go
says
back
Robert
here.
Michaels has started screen sharing.
Okay, let me see what happened here. Stop share. Okay, there we go. We're gonna go share. We're gonna go here, and we're gonna go share. There we go. So this is one of the pictures. I wonder if I can just press down. Nope, not gonna do it. So that's after Neil was in on the board. You could see Bill Maffey. Sorry, Bill, I'm not sure how to say your last name. But Bill was taking photos on the ground. Mahaffey, there you go. He actually caught the event of the collapse. So he just so happened to be watching this guy. This is Neil. So he's flying along now. He hit some super turbulent air and the glider just got blasted. And you can see the ground there. He's not very far off the ground. Are you seeing all these pictures or no?
No, I just see the one
Just the
with
one.
the guy
Okay.
It's the
hanging.
one. Yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure.
Several
let me
people
go
on
here.
the side of the hillside.
Okay, I see what's going on here. All right. So we have this picture here. This is just before the turbulence, and then he captured this, and it's really incredible. You can barely see the dirt there, but I mean, his wing just exploded. So
That's an epic, right?
I think it is BGD.
Yeah.
I think it's an epic. I'm not positive though, but it is definitely a BGD wing. Well, anyways, he catches these incredible shots, and it just so happened that there was a guy that was filming my landing with a drone. Gosh, we live in 2023, don't we? So this guy was following me to the landing with the drone, and then he actually talked to the guy who was taking the photos, and the guy showed him these incredible pictures. He's like, yeah, he goes, I caught these pictures and showed him with his phone or with the camera and said, yeah, this just happened. And anyways, that's how we got those pictures. The rescue helicopter is massive. Let me see if I can pull up that picture too. Sorry, just a second here. Some really good pictures of the guys kind of doing their thing. Okay, here we go. Share. Sorry, I'm still new at this. Share. There we go. So you can see how massive this helicopter is. And so it's got a pretty big wash underneath it. And when they're doing the rescue, it's really loud and stuff blowing around everywhere. So if you were one of the guys that landed and put your glider in the LZ, I want you to think about something. If they needed to, they might use the LZ that you use because it's going to be a good place to land. It's going to have a windsock. It's going to have a nice flat area typically, or somewhere where a helicopter could land. If you can land a paraglider there, I bet you a helicopter can land there. So having that said, think about the LZ. If your glider is just laying there and you ran up the hill to go rescue your friend, that's going to become a problem if he tries to cone land. So if you do land, try to pack up your stuff real quick, stuff it in something, throw a big rock on it or something. I don't know. Again, I'm just thinking about different logistics. It's possible that they would have made a decision right then to say, it's not really worth it for us to fly to the, we're going to pull this guy up, or maybe they just changed the situation. It's faster to put him in the ambulance and drive him to the hospital, or that hospital that's close by doesn't have a helicopter landing pad or whatever. A lot of different dynamics, or they have the exact medicine that they need in that emergency vehicle, whatever. It's worth.
A lot of pilots call them sky blenders.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what it is. I mean, it's a big propeller that's spinning around, blowing air down, and that can suck in and, from the side, and that can be bad news.
Yep. So think about that. So your LZ might become their LZ. So don't leave your stuff out there. Let's talk a little bit about the when you're kind of alone. Now, I recently did a cross country flight. It was a really fun one. We flew 35 kilometers. And the only reason I say kilometers is because that's what it said on my little tracker. What is 35 miles, or what is 35 kilometers in miles? What's 35 miles in kilometers? 35 miles is 56 kilometers. I asked the wrong question. Anyways, we made the flight, and there were times when we were separated. There was a group of us that went, about 4 of us, 5 or maybe 6 total. But different guys were landing out and didn't make goal. I was one of them that didn't make the goal. But I was separated by miles. I didn't realize it. I was like 5 miles separated from the guys that landed at goal. The chances of you being alone in a situation where you have a hard landing, or it requires a rescue, are there's a good chance you're going to be separated. Now, I want to just give an example. Steve Rohrbaugh, who is the president of the San Diego Hang Gliding and Paragliding Association, has a good example on his Telegram. His Telegram actually shows his picture, and then it shows a picture of him flying his glider. And then in his bio, it has his paragliding track, which he uses a Garmin, and it shows the information. And then it tells in his bio the color of his glider and what type of glider. It's a B glider, or looks like he has B in there. I don't think he flies a B wing. Maybe he does. That's a really good idea to put something in your bio about your glider, because what's going to happen if people don't really know you, they're going to try to search you up online. And then if they can find your account, maybe they can be able to help with information about who you are and whatever. So that's just a thought. And also, I found on another guy's account just before the show that he actually put the color of his reserve parachute in his bio. I thought it was very wise, because if you have to throw and you land somewhere, you're hung up in a tree, you don't have reception, at least you can use that. By the way, Garmin InReach Mini has the ability to text. Also, some new updated information from, I know this for sure, from Verizon phones. They actually will connect via GPS, and you can make communications even if you don't have cell signal, because it will connect with a GPS with some of the new phones. Okay, I want to mention a couple sponsors. Lone Star Paramotor, if you're in the Lone Star state of Texas, Ron Turan has a great training place there in Texas. You want to get a hold of him, LoneStarParamotor.com is the website. They just have a great thing going on there. You can meet Rain. She works there. And there's a whole bunch of other guys that have gone through the program there, and they all speak very highly of Ron and his group. So world-class training, LoneStarParamotor.com. Maybe you're thinking about doing an SIV. If you're in Southern California, I recommend that you go with Max Marion. And Max Marion has a website. It's maxacro.com. This is where I did my SIV. If you want to get some top-notch SIV training, you want to get the most bang for your buck, I think it's wise to use him. I can't say about everyone else, because I haven't done other SIVs, but I did mine with him, and it was incredible. maxacro.com is the website. Also want to quickly just put this plug in for Resurgence PPG. I know I normally do it at the very end of the show, but I'm going to do it now. If you want to support our men and women of uniform, you can do that by making a tax-deductible donation to resurgenceppg.com. When you donate, you're sponsoring those who have put their lives on the line for our freedoms that we enjoy every day. And some of these guys, they get mentally hurt. They get PTSD, or they go through things that we can't, as civilians, possibly understand. I was listening to a podcast. Some of our Navy SEALs were talking about being in Fallujah and having to kill people, and just the conversation I was listening to, it was like I was listening to something that couldn't possibly be real, that real people had to do that. And but they put their lives on the line. They go in, and Resurgence PPG is filling the gap and helping those people. So if you want to do that, resurgenceppg.com. Will Fly donated $5 to Super Chat. He said Resurgence PPG rocks, and they do. Thanks, Will Fly. Appreciate that contribution to the show. So letting the first responders know, giving them as much information as you can, I think, and being patient with them. They will ask you questions that you might think, that's a dumb question. Why are you asking that? They might ask questions that, and I can't think of any examples, but I've seen over the years just stuff on TV, and you can hear the correspondence going between the 911 operator and the person.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I don't know. I get frustrated. I want to get off the phone now. Don't be that person. Just work with them, and they have a reason why they're asking you that question. It's important that, and even if it doesn't make sense, and afterwards you go, that didn't make sense, and why'd you ask that question? Just roll with it. And don't be in a rush to get off the phone. They're going to probably want to stay on the phone with you until a first responder shows up, and then they will let you know when it's time to end the conversation. You shouldn't be the person that says, okay, well, I'm done now. Maybe you can have someone else call 911 now.
That's the worst, is when people call 911 and then they leave the area. I'm like, if you're that concerned about them, why did you just leave? Kind of thing. But no, you're right. Because there's a lot of different things to ask too. Like, hey, how did they fall? Do they go feet first or head first? Do they lose consciousness? Right. These are all things that, we need. And I guess the most important thing is everything that you saw, not just what you hear other people saying, because 10 other people are going to be like, oh, he was 500 feet up, or he was 10 feet, just tell them what you saw so we know that's fact, kind of thing. Because everyone's going to want to help and chime in the very beginning and just pretty much answer questions. They'll keep you online until someone gets there. But you almost have to designate someone to wait by the road to find them, because there's all these different trails that go there, just like you were saying with the fire department. If you say, hey, there's someone circling above there, you're going to be able to see them a lot easier and be able to pinpoint where it is. Also, on almost all phones, at least iPhones, if you just go on the free Compass app, it's already on your phone. It gives your latitude and longitude right there.
Oh, that's a good one.
So that one, if you don't know where you are, you just hit, it's already downloaded on your phone, Compass, and your latitude and longitude will show up there. They should be able to trace it, but just in case, it's kind of spotty reception. So,
yep. Look at that. Yeah. That is amazing. Yeah, I just open it up and it does. It shows your latitude and longitude. That's a really good tip. Thanks for that, Scott. Yes. So Scott, being a first responder, knows some of the common misconceptions and things that happen. Now, I also want to mention emotions are running high. Do your best to control your emotions. You're being emotional and over the top is not going to help the guy who's on the ground. If you're calm, it's probably going to calm them. If you're gathered and you've got your stuff together, it's probably going to help them to feel like, hey, this is going to be okay. A guy that has no hope is going to feel hopeless. And when you're hopeless and in a situation where you just need recovery and healing, it's not helping the situation. They did some studies with rats, and they did 2 studies with the rats, and stop me if you've already heard this before, but they took the rat and they put him in a 5-gallon bucket of water, and he would tread water and tread water and tread water. And then they would grab the rat and they would put a piece of wood in there, stick the wood in there and let him climb up on the wood for a second. And then a minute later, they would put him back in. And then they did the same thing with another rat. And I think what happened is the rats that would not get the wood, that wouldn't have the hope basically that they could get out, the one that had the wood, thinking that he was going to have the wood coming back, would stay swimming for like 2 hours. The one that didn't have the hope of the wood would only swim for like 10 minutes. And there's actually a Bible scripture that says hope deferred makes one sick. And so that's a part of this scenario. So yeah, keeping your wherewithal and keeping your focus. You make bad decisions when you're emotional. You were going to say something, Scott. I hope I didn't steamroll.
No, you're completely right. I mean, best thing to do is just, keep on talking to them, keep on reassuring them. And it may seem like the dispatcher's like barking things at you, but a lot of times people are so all over the place. They're just trying to get the information as fast as possible. So that's not a dispatcher having a bad day. They're just trying to get as streamlined as possible stuff. Because some people are like, oh, the dispatcher was mean to me, but it's it's funny because that's the complaint. Like that's the number one complaint. It's like they were mean to me, but like they have to be like, no, where are you? And then they, people are like, oh no, he ran that way. Well, we got to find out where you are so we can get people going to you first thing. And like you were saying, it's kind of just like kids is if your kid falls and you react and you're like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Then the kid freaks out. But if you're like, oh, you're fine. Then the kid's like, oh, okay. Same kind of thing.
That's so true. So true with the kids. You make a scene and then they start crying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hot Butter Steve donated $10 to Super Chat. He said, Robert, I earned my P1, but it came with a broken collarbone. Oops. You know how I grew up in a rough neighborhood, went to a restaurant. They served me a broken leg of lamb. It's a good restaurant. You go back to that restaurant. That's good. That's a good one, especially if they have lamb. That's a good place to eat. Yeah. So, first responders, your friends, there was one other thing I wanted to talk about, and I can't remember. I wrote down a bunch of notes, but I think I burned through most of them.
Jason Tyler talked about too. What wanted to know should talk about rescue insurance. And I remember one of our shows, or somebody was in the chat, or maybe it was through Facebook chat or something. There is some insurance that you can buy that it's actually not too bad when you really
Global Rescue.
Yeah,
I heard about them. Global Rescue. There's another one. If you go back to the show where we talked to Brandon, who's a local pilot here in San Diego, his show, he talked a little bit about his rescue because he had broke his back and had to get rescued. So while it was fresh, wanted to put these details out there. So all these little things that came together, how people responded, the communication, all those little details worked out in my opinion, it went as good as it could possibly go to rescue Neil, and Neil is doing okay, and he's among the living, and that's what's important, that he was able to survive something that, had first response not been so first, he may not have survived. I think that everybody who was involved in that did an incredible job from start to finish. Actually, it helped that I think 2 of the pilots that were there that day had already had a rescue situation, and maybe even helicopter involved. So they kind of knew what to expect, and it was pretty seamless, and it went as good as it could go. So hopefully these tips helped you. Hopefully some of the things that we talked about tonight will encourage you to think about what you're doing. Think about the sport. Be careful. Obviously, we need to, every time I leave to go flying, I tell my wife, I'm going flying. See you later. And she always says, okay, be careful. Come back to me. And so this is a leisure sport. We don't have to do this. It's for fun. Let's keep it fun. And was there any other questions? I saw Chris Ottmeyer made a statement when he got rescued. He said, I was laying face first. They put the board on me in that position and then rolled me over. I was put into the ambulance where they put an IV in. They gave me fentanyl while we waited for the helicopter. So yeah, that's really good information. Keeping yourself straight on that board. That's probably critical. Anyways, we're going to go to the after show. If you guys want to join the after show, you can do that. There's going to be a link in the description. We'll drop that in there. You're welcome to come hang out. You can watch me eat my dinner. That's coming up very quickly. Yep. Here's one of the kids probably telling me. Support the show on Patreon and PayPal. The show has kind of shifted. We've been on the air for a long time, so there's been just waves of people that have come through and been supporters, and then they get bored of the show, and then they take away their support and they go do other things. My hope is that there's always somebody to keep the show going and keep the water flowing, if you will, for gifts and moving the brand and whatever it takes. T-shirts cost money, the shipping costs money, the little trinkets, to get that stuff out. And so I typically reinvest that back into the show. If you want to support the show, you can do that by following the links in the description and keep things going. If, again, I think I mentioned this in the beginning of the show, if look at Rip Man, dude. If you go,
what was that? I don't know what you're talking about. What was that?
If you go back to
go push the rewind.
Yeah, if you what was I going to say? If you have somebody that you think would be good for the show, somebody that would really be a good guest, please message me. Go to the website and under the contact section and just message me on there and let me know who you think would be a good contact. And if you have that person's information that you're thinking would be good for the show, put their information in there and I'll reach out to them and we'll get them on. And so with that, thank you so much for watching. You guys are awesome. Thank you everybody for your comments and everybody that's been involved with the show for over the years. This is episode 276. So maybe we'll come up with something fun for episode 300. And thanks for watching. If I don't see you